The forest of Valdris 9 burned with an unnatural purple flame, courtesy of the Kryn incendiary strike that had scorched the settlement to ash 3 hours prior. Mira Dawson moved through the smoking ruins with practiced efficiency, her thermal scanner sweeping left to right as she searched for survivors. The colony had housed 217 souls, human and alien alike. So far, she'd found none. The Kryn didn't take prisoners. They didn't negotiate. They simply erased what they couldn't claim. Mira's scanner chirped, a heat signature, faint and clustered, beneath the massive ironwood tree that had collapsed near the colony's eastern perimeter. She approached cautiously, pulse rifle ready. The Kryn were thorough, but sometimes they missed things. Sometimes those things had teeth and claws and a taste for human flesh. As she drew closer, she heard a whimpering sound, barely audible over the crackling flames in the distance. Not human. Not adult. Her grip on the rifle loosened slightly. Thermal scan, narrow band, she muttered into her comm. The heads-up display in her visor adjusted, filtering out background heat. 3 small forms huddled in a hollow beneath the fallen tree's massive root system. Quadrupedal. Indigenous fauna. Cubs. Mira holstered her rifle. She'd seen adult Valdris panthers before apex predators the size of Earth's grizzly bears, with crystalline fangs that could punch through combat armor. These weren't those. These were babies, no larger than house cats, their bioluminescent stripes flickering weakly in distress. The largest of the 3 hissed at her approach, a pitiful sound that might have been threatening if the cub weren't visibly trembling. Behind it, 2 smaller forms pressed against the charred earth. One of them, the smallest, with stripes that pulsed an anxious orange, let out a mewling cry that made Mira's chest tighten. "Easy," she whispered, though she knew they couldn't understand her language. "I'm not here to hurt you." The cubs didn't move. The smallest one, barely visible in the shadows, watched her with eyes that reflected the distant firelight, like tiny moons. Terrified. Alone. Mira had seen that look before. Inhuman children pulled from rubble on Centauri 7. In refugees fleeing the Kryn advanced through the outer reaches. In her own reflection. Years ago, when the colony ships had first arrived on humanity's doorstep with news of a galaxy that wanted them dead, she set down her pack and began unpacking supplies. The cubs watched, tense and ready to bolt if they could, but they were trapped. The tree had fallen in such a way that escape routes were blocked by flaming debris on 3 sides. They had nowhere to go. "Here's what we're going to do," Mira said conversationally, pulling out her portable heat cell and a protein ration. "I'm going to build a fire. A small one. Safe. And you're going to realize that not everything that comes after a bombing wants you dead." She worked quickly, assembling the heat cell into a small campfire configuration. The artificial flames bloomed to life, warm and orange, and nothing like the purple hellfire that had consumed their world. The cubs flinched, pressing deeper into their hollow. Mira sat down cross-legged, making herself small, non-threatening. She tore off a piece of the protein ration and tossed it gently toward the hollow. It landed a meter from the largest cub's nose. "It's not much," she admitted, "but it's what I've got." Minutes passed. The fire crackled softly. In the distance, something exploded, probably a fuel cell finally giving up. The cubs didn't move toward the food. Mira tried a different approach. She began to hum an old lullaby her mother had sung to her during the first contact wars, when humanity had learned the hard way that the galaxy wasn't waiting with open arms. The melody was soft, repetitive, soothing. The smallest cub, the one with orange stripes, shifted slightly. Its eyes remained fixed on Mira, but the desperate edge of panic seemed to fade just a fraction. "That's right," Mira whispered. "You're safe. I know you don't know what that means yet, but you will." She continued humming, occasionally speaking in low tones, telling them about Earth, about the forests there, about how humanity had learned to survive in a hostile universe, not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by being the most stubborn, by refusing to leave anyone behind, even the small, the frightened, the ones who couldn't fight back. An hour passed. Then 2. The fire burned steady and warm. The distant flames began to die down. Finally, The smallest cub moved. Tirek, she decided to call him that, after the Valdris word for spark that she'd learned from the colony's xenobiologist, crept forward on trembling legs. His bioluminescent stripes had shifted from orange to a cautious yellow. He sniffed the protein ration, looked up at Mira with those enormous reflective eyes, and took a tiny, hesitant bite. Mira's throat tightened. She didn't move, barely breathed. Tirek ate. Then his siblings followed, emboldened by his bravery. "That's it," Mira whispered. "You're going to be okay." When the rescue shuttle arrived 3 hours later, they found Mira Dawson sitting beside a small fire, 3 Valdris panther cubs sleeping in her lap. The pilot, a grizzled Centaurian who'd seen his share of war, stared in disbelief. "Those things grow up to hunt in packs," he said flatly. "They'll be apex predators in 6 months." "I know," Mira replied, gently stroking Tirek's head. The cub's stripes pulsed a contented blue. "Command's not going to approve this." "They will," Mira said with quiet certainty. "Because that's what we do. We find the ones left behind in the fire, and we bring them home." The pilot shook his head but didn't argue. He'd heard the stories about humans, how they'd domesticated wolves on their homeworld, turned predators into companions, through nothing but patience and inexplicable kindness. How they'd taken a galaxy that wanted them extinct and carved out a place in it through sheer, stubborn compassion. As the shuttle lifted off, Tirek stirred in Mira's arms and looked up at her. His stripes flickered once a brilliant, trusting green. Mira smiled. "You're safe now," she whispered again. "I promise." And in a galaxy built on survival of the fittest, humanity had once again proven that sometimes the strongest thing you could do was simply care.